Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about these Backhoe forks. They're the forklift fork adapters. I got mine from Amazon. They're rated to be 4,000 pound. So some of the problems I've had, when you crank them down, you're relying on this screw, this threaded rod really, to hold back the force of whatever weight you have on the end of the forks, and there's a lever arm, right? So all the weight's way out there on the end. Let's say you're picking up a wide load. There's lever action, right? And so it's cantilevering at the backhoe where it's connected, and the threaded rod itself is 3/8 of an inch, half an inch maybe tops. So there's no way it's holding back the force of 4,000 pounds when it's threaded out 4 inches. So I'll show you what the problem is, one of the problems. So here's the original threaded rod that came with these forks. And I just measured it. It was a 5/16 of an inch rod. And what happened was it would go through, it goes through the square tube, and it had a welded in nut underneath. And this would go through the hole, through the nut, and press down, and it had a little flared out cap at the end, and it would supposedly press down on your load. But what's happening is, when you have weight out here, the force is twisting the forks, in this manner, and pressing against this skinny little rod. So I went out and it bent, and it also popped the thread loose on the nut and collapsed. So that's my first problem. My second problem was, you even touch this against something a little bit side to side, and the whole arm would swing back and forth, right, and disconnect, or just swing off to the side, because the only thing holding it on was a little thread here. So it had the ability to just kind of swing side to side. So that's bad. So terrible weld job. I know. Don't criticize. I don't know how to weld. Okay. But what I've done is I've actually put this plate on the block. And what this plate does is it actually catches the underside of my bucket. My bucket actually fits just around this and is catching here. So the point of the bucket's going here, and then there's a flat piece that's actually a thicker piece of metal, and then it comes up and it goes back that way. So by putting this flat plate on and welding this plate in place, it's actually holding it where it needs to stay, and was reducing some of the side to side. And then I got a very large piece of flat steel. You can see it's pretty thick, thicker than the actual tube, the welded tube that I have here. And I just drilled holes and bolted that in place. And that really stops the side to side motion. But I had to do it, because I'm using this is for picking up trees. So I wanted these forks out as wide as my bucket would allow, so I had to get a custom piece of steel. This is not like normal forklift widths. So the next problem was, when I raise... Actually, let's talk about that. So next I went to this size thread. And this size thread's working out pretty well. And then I broke the other side. And I went crazy. I got some really thick threaded rod here. You can see it's as thick as my finger, threaded rod, and bolted that in place. I think it's 5/8. But so back to this guy. You can see what's happening now is that the threaded rod is holding. I welded a nut inside, so I have a nut welded inside, and I have a nut welded on top, and that works out pretty well. But now the metal itself is ripped apart, because we're trying to lift up, 1,000 pounds, 4,000 pounds, logs. I'm trying to lift logs with this thing. So now the metal's ripped here, and I started to try to weld it back together. My arc welding technique is horrible. My metal shop instructor from high school would be horrified at this, but it's also the prep. I didn't really prep it right, so I have to go back and re-prep. I'm going to smash this back in place if I can, and re-weld this, and I'm going to put a reinforcing plate over the front here to hold this together. Sort of just clamp this together and put a weld all the way around it. So that should hold. And I'll do the same on this side before this side kicks open as well. And I'll finish the weld around the back side of this guy. is the thickest threaded rod that I thought I could really bend easily. So it was a compromise. It was thick, but not too thick. And this one is the not quite as thick. The first one I went with, and really, it's still not thick enough. But hopefully it'll hold for a couple logs before it breaks again, and I have to fix it again. Having the nuts welded on, they're just not quite free to let the threading go through. So it's really hard. It binds quite a bit. I should have left a little bit more tail on here for leverage. But I think over time it'll get easier. I've tried oil. I've tried backing it out and putting it back in again. And nothing's perfect, but it's workable. It's not easy, but it's workable. Okay, there we go. See how long it lasts.